How's everybody doing? I'm Hodge, and today I'm here with Gabi Burgholzer, correct?
Correct.
And she's in the Army, right? And then you're now at this, did you get chosen or did you apply or how did you get to where you ended up on the Army lifting? Is it the lifting team, strongman team? What is it exactly?
So it's called the US Army Warrior Fitness Team, and we have two sections. We have a CrossFit section and then a strongman section. On the CrossFit side, we have about 12 athletes. One also does powerlifting on the side, and then there's three strongman competitors, two males and myself. And the way it happened was a mass email was sent out to all the active duty soldiers in the US Army and asking if anybody's interested in joining the US Army Warrior Fitness Team. You had to send in an application, come out for tryouts for a couple of days, and do an interview with the command team. I actually had deleted all those emails, didn't think that it was for me. But the first sergeant of the unit actually reached out to me via social media, said, "Hey, I've been watching you lift for quite some time now. Are you interested in coming out?" I said, "Well, I don't do CrossFit. If you have anything else going on, I would love to be a part of it." So he decided to also make a strongman team on the Warrior Fitness Team. And so I came out, tried out, and was selected within a day.
Awesome. So how long are the orders for there? Like, how does that work? Is it a typical 3-4 year set of orders, or how does that work?
So it's considered a broadening assignment. So for officers, it's going to be about 2 years. And for the enlisted soldiers, it's 3 years.
Okay. That sounds about usual.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, let's go back to when did you get in the Army? What did you do before this? Like, what was your MOS and everything?
So I joined in 2013 as a 6-gate whiskey, which is a combat medic.
Okay.
Did that for a couple of years and was then selected by the Army to become a special forces recruiter out in Hawaii. Was there for about 2.5 years before I was selected for the US Army Warrior Fitness Team.
Okay. And you're in Kentucky now, right?
Yes, the team is based out of Fort Knox, Kentucky, because the US Army Recruiting Command is also stationed out here.
How do you like that difference between Hawaii and Kentucky? Probably big changes, isn't
it? Can I say no comment?
Okay.
It's definitely quite a change. We obviously have the regular seasons here, so it gets quite cold in the wintertime. Had a little bit of snow, actually. But yeah, I definitely miss Hawaii. I miss not having to wear winter clothing. That's for sure.
There's something about the island here that when people leave, they end up at least coming to visit regularly. The island grows on people. You know, I hear people that come here and they'll fuss about being here, but then when they go get orders somewhere else, they're always taking vacations coming back. So,
oh, absolutely. I'm definitely planning on coming back. I did my first strongman competition that was unsanctioned in Hawaii. So I'm planning on returning for that every year. It's in April. It's during the Hawaii Fit Expo. Sadly, it was canceled this year because of the coronavirus, but I'm planning on coming next year.
As of right now, I don't know if you saw, they canceled the Sean Ray. And
yes, I saw all the NPC competitions are canceled as well. Yes.
And I don't know if you were here when they started the Aloha, but it's been pushed back. They're hoping for November. So might be the only one that we have. But right now, they're waiting to see when the gyms open, because if the gyms don't open, people can't get ready in time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure everybody who is 16, even 12 weeks out is probably struggling at the moment.
Yeah. Now, you've had some experience doing what? You did women's physique or bodybuilding? Which category was it? Physique?
It was women's physique. That wasn't the bodybuilding category at the Aloha Muscle.
Oh, that's right.
So I did that. Put my toe in the water, tried it out, decided it wasn't for me, just for the simple fact that I have an inner fat child that didn't like the diet.
Yeah.
I love to lift, and as you probably know, once you get closer to actual competition time, you lose some of that strength just because you're depleting your body so much, and I really didn't like that. My coach back then kept saying to me, it doesn't matter how much you bench or how much you deadlift on stage. It only matters what you look like. And it's really that moment when I realized that, okay, I'm still going to do the competition, but after that, I want to change into something where it actually matters how strong I am.
Yeah.
And tried powerlifting for a little bit. Honestly, got a little bored because it's just those 3 general lifts that you do. Tried also arm wrestling, did that at the Hawaii Fit Expo, but ended up in strongman and just fell in love with it and found my passion with it.
You know, it's funny how you bring that up about the strength. People saying that doesn't matter how you lift, and there is a certain point where you have to have that mentality. But I think honestly that people think about that too early in the prep, and it causes them to kind of lift lighter, and then they end up not being as big on stage as they can be. I mean, you see clips of Ronnie Coleman where he's deadlifting like 700 pounds 2 weeks from the Olympia, and I mean, I know the guy was a genetic freak, but I think people. I always try to tell people, you know, keep training as if you're trying to get bigger and stuff, even when you're diet. Let the diet do the work, because if you start backing off of the weights and you're already in a deficit, your body's already going to be prone to getting rid of muscle. You don't want to exacerbate that with shitty training because you're not too worried about the weight. Like, you should be setting goals and pushing yourself. I mean, there's a point to where your joints and stuff start taking pain when your body fat's low, but besides that small period, you should be going balls to the wall all the way through as hard as you can. I think that also makes getting leaner a little easier because you're working harder. But that is one thing. Some people want the numbers, they want the records and stuff, and some people just want to look good, and that's where you hit that fork in the road. Now, what some people don't understand though, and I know you can put it on this with the strongman side, is just because you're not bodybuilding and you're going into powerlifting or strongman, that one involves more science than the other. I've trained people for both powerlifting and bodybuilding, and there is just as much science and technique, except you just have to change what the goal is. I mean, powerlifting and probably strongman too, you're going more for mechanics and getting the most, trying to get the lift as easy as possible, using as much muscles as possible, using any mechanical advantage as possible, which bodybuilding is the exact opposite. You're condensing the workload onto a smaller muscle so that you can get a bigger response out of the muscle.
Oh, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that as a strongman competitor, we don't work on those smaller muscles as well. I do plenty of accessory work to support that bigger muscle group, just like you did in bodybuilding. I've heard a lot of people say, well, strongman competitors don't watch the diet as much, or they don't train as hard, or just different. And I honestly completely agree with the part that, yes, we train differently, but our diet also varies very much from bodybuilding. I want to say that I eat more carb heavy now rather than before. During bodybuilding, you did a lot of carb cycling, cutting back on carbs the closer you get to the competition. And for me, it's actually the opposite. For strongman competitions, I actually up my carbs the closer I get to my competition time. Because in strongman, we do have weight classes, but they are very wide. So my weight category is from 145 pounds to 180 pounds. So I actually don't have to do a lot of cutting right before my competition. Actually, I look more to gain a little bit of extra weight, to have a little bit of more extra strength for the actual competition.
That helps the joints too, right? To have a little bit of water in there and everything before you go in, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I try to not gain a lot of weight throughout my prep time in general. Like a lot of people, they gain 15, 20 pounds and then do a water cut right before the competition. I completely disagree with the way of doing that. I feel like it does hurt your strength, it does hurt your joints. And so I just try to stay at the same weight throughout my competition prep.
Yeah, even with MMA fighters that I've helped lose weight, I try to do it in a more comfortable fashion so they can come in without having to cut a lot at the end, and their fights are better. So, and I know it can be, so I definitely on the same page as you are. And another thing I don't think people realize is if you're just doing strongman with all the invents you're doing, and you're just eating whatever, saying you're trying to get bigger, and you go a shit way about eating certain foods, you could be so uncomfortable that it could actually impede your training.
Oh, absolutely. I tried a couple of different ways. Yes, I ate a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have eaten for a while, and my workouts were awful. My strength decreased. I felt sluggish, tired all the time. So I actually went back to counting macros like I did in my bodybuilding days, and it has improved pretty much all of my different lifts. I've PRs continuously throughout my competition prep.
There's all kinds of stuff you can think about. And there are even times where I'll go in the gym and I'll miscalculate when to eat, or I'll eat something I shouldn't, and I'm so bloated and stuff, and I can usually handle it. But when it comes to like legs, when I have to wear the belt and stuff, if I'm really bloated or backed up because I haven't been eating right, my leg day is just shit. So I would rather take the extra effort to eat clean and be able to have a good workout, because that's what's going to help you to grow.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I still throw a cheat meal in there every once in a while. It's just good for the soul, I believe. So I do have my pizza or my sushi once a week. But other than that, yeah, my daily routine has pretty much stayed the same as during bodybuilding.
Do you
Just
take care
higher
of,
intake.
do you have a nutrition coach, or do you take care of your own stuff?
I take care of it myself at this point. Bodybuilding, I had a nutrition coach for a couple months. He showed me the basics, and I learned from there on. Just watched my own body, just watched how I felt for workouts, before, after, what would help me personally. Because, yeah, you can give somebody a cookie cutter diet plan, but at the end of the day, everybody's very different, especially from male to female, I want to say. So I just learned over time what works for me. Yeah.
Now, when you do your diet, like what are your main food choices? Like what foods work best with your body? And, do you build your diet around? Because some people, I know sometimes I go by blood types, because I won't build the diet around the blood type, but I'll know that if it's this blood type, there's a good percentage of chance that this food will not work with them, but this one will. So, and I, like, for instance, O type, we tend to have a higher acidity. So I'll usually always put in red meat at night. But if it's like an A, I might put in salmon instead at night, because it digests a little better, because they might wake up bloated with the steak. Now, granted, as you get leaner and get more muscle and your metabolism goes up, a type A may be able to have steak, fine. But for the initial part, I would stick with what, kind of agrees with their body better. And of course, you always have the oddball who doesn't go by the rules, and you just have to figure trial and error to figure out what works for them. So what's, diet-wise, what works best for you as far as foods to choose, how much per time, how many meals, all that stuff?
So my typical day-to-day diet is 5 or 6 meals. In the morning, I'll have my half a cup of oatmeal, half a cup of egg whites, and 1 egg. And that's usually right before I go in and lift. We lift usually around from 10 to 12:30, 1 o'clock. After that, I'll have chicken with sweet potatoes and broccoli. Then 2.5 hours later, I'll have chicken, rice, and broccoli. And usually when I know the next day is going to be a heavy lift day, a heavy deadlift, or heavy squats, my nightly meal then, I call it my refeed meal, is usually steak with sweet potatoes, and I'll add an extra 2 to 3 ounces of sweet potatoes in there, and broccoli again. So still sticking with those bodybuilding meals. If you have your carbs, maybe half an hour before your work session, it definitely helps you, especially the slow absorbing carbs. They'll just give you that energy boost throughout. You don't crash in the middle of your workout.
Yeah, and plus, like at night, if they're going to train like after their first meal in the morning, then usually the night before, I'll make sure they have carbs, so that that's also in their system. Because I've noticed it. Now, me personally, I've noticed that, okay, if this person trains after their first meal, and because your standard cookie cutter type diet to pull the carbs out at night, they're not going to have as much energy the next day, because that one meal will be some carbs, but it may not be as much as they can hold to get ready. You see what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
That's so sometimes that was interesting. You say you put the carbs in at night, because if you're training that early, you definitely use them. So I know they're not going to be stored as fat or anything like that. In fact, your tanks are probably full, and you probably have a better workout because you put them in before bed.
Absolutely. I've noticed a huge difference. I used to try to not eat a lot at night, and then I would notice that the next day's workout, I just couldn't put up the numbers, or I couldn't follow through the entire workout. I would go through the motion, but not actually, not get the results that I wanted, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That, because you mentioned sweet potatoes. Since you left Hawaii, do you miss the Okinawan potatoes?
Absolutely. It's so much better.
I don't know what I'm going to do if I decide to move from here, because they taste so good. And I know, like, once you get away from the West Coast, they're very hard to find.
Yeah, haven't found them here yet, so gotta stick with those sweet potatoes, and just gotta suck it up,
Yeah, I don't like the orange ones. I don't like the yams. I'm a big Okinawan sweet potato guy, but I mean, like you said, if that's your goal, that's what you got to eat. You got to eat it.
I just put plenty of seasoning on it and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing stuff for performance, you do have to pay attention, because it can come down a little of one day, you start feeling sluggish, and you have to, okay, well, I need to add carbs into this specific meal so that I feel better for the workout and things like that. So it's interesting that you said that, because sometimes as your body changes and as your performance changes, the diet has to change. So it's not like one cookie cutter thing doesn't work. And once you get it, even when you get it working for your body, as your body changes, you're going to have to make a change to that diet to keep up with it, or it's no longer going to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for example, if I know I have a heavy deadlift coming up, a heavy deadlift day coming up, the night before, I'll add an extra 2-3 ounces of carbs to my dinner meal. And then also in the morning before, I have my oatmeal. And instead of doing just half a cup like I usually do, I usually take in a cup just to make sure that I have that extra, energy to get the deadlift going, to increase my deadlift every week to a PR.
I've seen when I have guys do the bench squat deadlift, the powerlifting meets, I've noticed that if I don't, because this time we're like segue talking about training, but when I train these guys, like, a few weeks out, I'll start doing supersets and stuff with them, and people thinking, why are you doing that? I was like, well, there's an endurance aspect to it. And what you start seeing when you go to the meet is you're doing 3 attempts at each lift. You're doing 9 lifts of heavy ass weight. People start getting worn out. But when I have guys there, I might even give them some intra workout with some like glycofuse or something, just to sit between them, as long as they don't get bloated. And they're still, everybody's sucking wind. They're still pretty good to go. When it comes to do training and diet, that's one thing I know on the powerlifting side, people don't think about prepping for, because they think it's because it's one rep that it's not going to tire them out. Now with what you do, I'm interested in with how you train. Do you guys cycle different methods throughout the week, or how do you keep to where you kind of get, because you got to get a little bit of everything. You got to be able to perform. You got to be endurance. You got to be strong. Mm-hmm. So how do you divide that up, if you can tell, or at least give us a good idea of what the training's like, so you can cover all those bases?
So I want to say my workout changes almost every week, just because I do have to listen to my body. So yes, we do some endurance lifts where I go a little lighter, do a lot of M reps, also EMOMs. I know they're all CrossFit terms, but so M rep, as many rounds as possible. Usually go for either 45 seconds or 60 seconds, because at a competition, we do have a 60-second time window usually for a heavy lift. And then I do my EMOMs probably weekly at this point. And that's going to be heavier weight, usually above comp weight, looking at 110% of my comp weight. And that's every minute on the minute, usually for 10 minutes.
Okay.
So I can't even tell you the last time I actually went for an actual max rep, just because it's not really what they're looking for in a strongman competition. Usually I know that I can do the weight, I can go heavier. But during competition, it's more of an endurance. Even though we just say, oh, it's only 60 seconds, you have to do 10 to 15, durations during that amount of time. So yes, endurance is a big part of my training at this point.
Okay. And that justifies how you're having to raise the carbs and stuff up too, which is somebody normally training for bodybuilding and stuff, competition would cut them out. So makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Now when you go, do the events that you guys do in the competitions change, or is it set, or what is usually a standard competition? First of all, how many times a year do you guys go and compete? Who do you compete against? Is it a standard competition, or is it like all the branches together, or how do you guys do it?
So I compete on the civilian side. So any competition that's out there, I will go and attend. I did get my pro card in the middleweight division a while back. So now I'm only able to do pro shows at this point. So unless I go heavyweight or lightweight, amateur competitions are out of the question for me at the moment. So yeah, we compete, I want to say, between 5 and 10 times a year. Whatever competition is available. Strongman, the competitions are not planned out far in advance. So sometimes the competition will randomly come up in like 2 months, and we'll just go and attend.
What's the what does the events look like as far as the strongman ones? Like what kind of are the events change every time you go to a different competition, or what kind of stuff do you guys do?
Absolutely. So the promoter of the competition can decide the events, not only the number of the events, but which events. As strongman competitors, we have our general set events that we know throughout the year they're going to show up in a competition or another. For example, Atlas Stones or the log lift. Deadlift is very popular. I just recently did a sled drag, arm over arm pull at the Arnold's. That doesn't happen very often. It was very heavy. It was over 1,000 pounds. But yeah, we have our regular ones, and then they'll throw some random ones in there every once in a while. Especially at the Arnold, for example, there was 6 events instead of the usual 5 that I see at competitions. And the 6th event was not actually put out until a week prior to, so you couldn't actually train up for it. So it was still fun. Don't get me wrong. It was unexpected that they would throw that in there.
Which Arnold? Was it the one in Columbus?
Yes, the one in Columbus, Ohio, back in March. Sadly, no spectators were allowed in, but we still got to compete luckily. So.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see some of those guys like Hathorn and Brian Shaw in person and see what they look like in person, because they look like ridiculous on TV as it is.
And, they're massive.
Yeah.
They actually make me feel small. That's great.
It's like they're like close to 7 feet, aren't they?
Yeah, 6'7" is the tallest, and when he walks by you, you're just amazed. He's just massive.
I kind of like how the Arnold is now getting just as popular for the strongman as it is the bodybuilding, because I'll actually stop what I'm doing to watch the strongman events as well as the bodybuilding, because seeing some stuff those guys do, because I watched when Hathorn broke the deadlift record and when he did the Apollo's axle and like clean and press it like 3 or 4 times. It was ridiculous. And see, and I used to watch strongman when I was a kid too, because ESPN used to play the reruns all the time. And I noticed that over the years from back when I watched it to now, the strongmen are in better shape. Because I remember back when you had like Chief Iron Bear Collins, and this was the era where like Magnuson was winning all the time. Some of them were just really, they were fatter and bigger, but they can move a lot of weight. But now as you're starting to see, these guys are coming in close to 400 pounds with a midsection, and their endurance is up and they can do a lot of stuff. So, as people talk about how bodybuilding has changed over the years, you look at the strongmen, they're built completely different now as how they were maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the sport itself has changed a lot too. If you look even back like the last 15, 20 years, what they did back then for a max rep is now expected of a lower weight class to do 4 reps in the 60 seconds. So, people are getting stronger every year. I even see it in my weight class from last year to this year that the weights are being upped every time I go to a competition. You have to get stronger. You have to just go with the flow. But those pros are just impressive to watch. Not just the men, but also the women. I got to watch at the Arnold. They set some new world records while I was there. Just super impressive to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, just as much training and stuff goes into that as anything. I think that's a lot of wear and tear on your body and joints, and you have to prepare for that. And sometimes I think people don't realize that. They don't realize how much work goes into what you do versus the bodybuilding and like football and stuff like that. Like, it's just as much dedication as effort as any other sport.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you, I mean, every week something else hurts in my body. I'm not going to lie. But you push through and you deal with it and you work around. And I mean, just like with bodybuilder, strong competitors, we go through the same process. We work on our diet, on our training. Sleep and rest cycles are very important as well. So I myself take 2 to 3 days off a week where I just have an active rest day where I don't lift. I still do something cardio related. I mean, it doesn't have to be on the treadmill. I may just go for a hike or something just to keep going and keep the endurance up.
Yeah, I was about to ask what kind of cardio regimen we're on, because I'm sure there has to be, especially at least some interval hit type with weights, and it has to be some endurance stuff. I was curious about what type of cardio they have you guys do.
Being in the Army, I still have to take the Army PT physical test every year. Yeah. So that's a 2-mile run in there. So I do run every once in a while just to keep it up and keep it going. But mostly, I'll hop on the treadmill or I go for a hike, just staying active that way. Every once in a while, I'll jump on a bike and do like a 5K or something at a higher speed or intervals just to keep my heart rate up.
Yeah, and you're eating enough to where you don't have to worry about any muscle loss or anything.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, when you were younger, were you involved in sports and stuff growing up or anything like that?
So I actually grew up on a farm. So lifting and carrying heavy odd objects, just like we do in strongman, was technically a daily chore for me. So I've noticed even as a child, I was always a little stronger than the other girls. I was always running around outside, lifting something, doing something crazy. Wasn't really involved with sports until I joined the Army, and that's when I really started getting into lifting, staying fit, just because you had to stay fit in the Army. And yeah, like I said, I then found my passion for lifting, bodybuilding, and then strongman.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Austria. Came to
Okay.
the States as an adult, as an exchange student, and I just fell in love with the country. And that's why I
Awesome.
decided to join the greatest branch there is, the United States Army.
I noticed an accent in there. That's why I was asking. I figured. And plus, with just the way you're building stuff with the genetics, I know it's not American. Like when you see, you know, it looks like that makes more sense that you tell me you're from Austria. Yeah, and growing up on the farm and stuff, it can. I kind of, well, I was in North Carolina up in the mountains. We did the same stuff. So it's nothing for us to go out and dig out ditches after it rains to get the driveway cleared out and stuff like that. So as far as mind muscle connection and learning how to do something, like me and my brother, people that grew up there, we catch on a lot quicker. But when there's people that have grown up in apartments and haven't done a lot of yard work and they go and get to the gym, I kind of notice when I train those people, I have to like go back a few levels and teach them just how to find their muscle when they're training because they've never really used it a lot. But you know, in Hawaii, there's a lot of Filipino, Samoan, a lot of cultures that grew up doing a lot of work, a lot of manual labor. So when these guys touch the weights, usually they catch on quick and they blow up pretty fast, especially the Samoan guys. Like they're strong as hell. So, you know, it's when you said the farm thing, it's like that makes a lot of sense because a lot of those mechanics and stuff you probably got just working on the farm. I mean, I did landscaping and stuff. I've done hay. I've done all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I can definitely relate with that. And it does. I honestly, now that we're talking about it, when people start having their kids being afraid to train because they're young, I'm like, if that were true, we wouldn't be able to do any of the work that we did growing up, because it's just muscle resistance stuff. Yeah. So when people are like, I'm afraid to have my kid train. I'm like, we used to go out and bust wood and lift trees and stuff. What's the difference? I mean, it's just more organized, but you still have the same stress on the muscle.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's actually better if we, as have our kids be outside and work outside when they're still kids, because there's actually been some studies done that this generation coming up now, because they spend so much time inside, playing video games, not being active, that actually their bone density is not as dense and they're more likely to have injuries.
Not to mention their immune system, especially with what's going on right now, and kids staying inside their immune system is probably not as good.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we used to go out and eat Play-Doh and stuff. I mean, do all kinds of dumb stuff. And then, I've noticed we get sick, we can get over a little bit quicker. That's when kids' immune systems are developing. If you don't get them out into the stuff, they're not gonna develop as well.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Where do you see yourself like 10 years down the road as far as career lines? It's like, are you going to stay in the Army till you retire? Are you going to go now? What organization did you get your pro card in?
Middleweight division.
Like what organization?
Strongman Corps.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you plan? You see a career outside the Army doing the strongman stuff, or what do you see? What's your goal? What's your plan?
I mean, I'm definitely gonna continue competing in strongman as long as my body will let me. Career-wise, I'm gonna stay in the Army. Probably do the full 20 if they'll let me. I would like to switch over to the officer side eventually. I've been enlisted for about 7 years now. I love my time, but I would like to get a little bit more leadership experience on the officer side.
When you guys think you're going to compete again, how many more years do you have left on the team?
So I joined the team back in August of last year. So I still got good year and a half, 2 years left for sure. Planning on competing. So they just announced that my next 2 competitions are being rescheduled. They haven't put out really a date for it yet, but I was supposed to compete at America's Strongest Woman. That was supposed to be in June in San Diego, California at War on the Shore. And then I was supposed to compete at World's Strongest Woman in Canada in July. So both of those are being rescheduled, hopefully, for later in the fall.
Okay. So I know there's going to be people listening that are just wondering, as far as your basic core lifts, like bench, squat, deadlift, you still do those? Like, what kind of numbers do you put up?
Yeah, I still squat, and deadlift. Bench, not so much. Deadlift, my max, I want to say, is about 520 right now. Squat, looking at 405. ish. On a good day.
What weight class? What weight class are you in? What's middleweight? What's the numbers?
Middleweight goes up to 180 pounds.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, and that's usually what I sit at. I'm roughly 180 at any given day. Yeah.
Is there anything else before we end that you want to add or you want to say?
Last thing I want to say is I want to give a huge shout out to all the women out there in the strength sport. Keep kicking ass. Don't let anybody tell you that muscles don't look beautiful on women. Keep doing what you're doing and keep loving yourself.
I'm very glad you said that. I think there's some women out there that are afraid, that want to train. And usually what you see is they'll start training and once they start seeing their body change, they kind of get addicted to it. And then all that goes out the window. But I know there's a lot of people who won't take that initial step because they're always worried about whether the people are going to look down on them, especially in other countries where that stuff's a little bit more taboo than it is in America. So I'm glad you said that. Definitely, when it comes down to it, is what makes you happy. Because if you're not happy, you're sure as hell not going to be happy with anybody else or make anybody else happy. On that note, I would like to thank you so much for coming on and letting me do this interview. I know once you left the island, I started looking at your Instagram and saw you were doing this stuff, and I thought it'd be great to talk and get some info on it. And I hope everybody enjoyed the listen. And hopefully this stuff blows over and you get back to competing soon. So the next competition, what's your goal the next time you compete? Like, what are you shooting for? You try to take like a whole overall or trying to win a weight class? I don't know exactly how it goes, but.
So there's no overall like there's in bodybuilding. You just take a place. Shooting for hopefully top 5. It's gonna be my first pro competition, so top 5 would be amazing.
And they average all the events together, like as you win one you get so many points and then whoever wins the majority?
Correct. So you get points for each event. Obviously if you did the most reps, for example, you get the most points, and that also decides the order of who goes up next at the next event. Which is great. So let's say you win the first event. Yeah. Everybody else is going to go before you. So you know exactly how many reps you will have to do at the second event to win that event again.
Oh, so there's actually perks. So if you keep winning each event, then you know how much to win and plus conserve yourself so you don't overdo it.
Correct. So you may not have to do the 20 reps that you could possibly do. You may only have to do 14, and you can save that energy for the next event coming up.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show and, let me find out more about what you do, interview and everything. And, of course, you being in the Army, I'm sure me and everybody else thanks you for service and what you do. And it's really awesome that you get this opportunity to do the strongman thing for the Army. It's like the best of everything right now, and it's really awesome opportunity. And I hope you get the most out of it. You get everything you want out of it before you move on to your next set of orders. So thanks for joining us, Gabi. And everybody, you want to shout out your IG to people so they can follow you if you want?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hodge. Yeah, my IG is Gabi _ the Austrian Oaktress. Okay. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Austrian Oak, I'm the Austrian Oaktress.
Awesome. And I'll if you guys look at the bottom of this video or the podcast, no matter depending on which version you listen to, I'll put the link to her Instagram at the bottom so you guys can click and follow her on there. All right, Gabi, thank you for taking this time out to do this interview and stuff, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon after you win one of these events coming up in the fall.
Thank you so much, Hodge. Really appreciate it.